We formed a quorum. It's the appointed time. Let's call the meeting to order. This is a committee to scrutinize 5 pieces of subsidiary legislation related to the commission of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge, gazetted on the 22nd of October 2018. According to the House rules set out in Appendix 4 of the House rules, can we have some nomination for chairman of the subcommittee? A valid nomination has to be made orally by a member and seconded orally by another member and accepted by the nominee. Mr. Yu Si-wing, Mr. Frankie Yip, yourself. Any seconders? Mr. Chairman seconds. I accept the nomination. So can I ask Mr. Yu Si-wing to chair the meeting, please? Any other nomination, please? Any nomination? No? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. So, Mr. Yik, please come to take over the chair. So, is there a need to elect a deputy chairman? No? Okay, no need. So, let's start the meeting. Can we now invite the administration team to join us, please? Welcome the government officials joining us. Those who are present today, Mr. Parson Lam, PAS for Security, Ms. Lau Seaman Shirley, PAS for Transport and Housing, Mr. Eric Wan, Principal Transport Officer, Transport Department, Ms. Louise Ho, Assistant Commissioner, Customs and Excise Department, Mr. Tai Chi-yin, Assistant Director, Immigration Department, and Mr. Patrick Laidler, Regional Commander, New Territory South Hong Kong Police Force, Mr. Chui Man Lang, Deputy Chief Fire Officer, FSD, Mr. Chan Wei Ken from FSD, Assistant Chief Ambulance Officer, and then from the DOJ on 2 of them on our left side. So item 2 on the agenda is to discuss the 5 pieces of subsidiary legislation. The name is rather long. I'll rather not go through it. So can I now ask the administration to brief us on the paper, please? Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. We are going to discuss 5 pieces of subsidiary legislation relating to the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge. The bridge was commissioned on the 24th of October this year, and on the 22nd of October, the Security Bureau has introduced 5 pieces of subsidiary legislation to the security measures on the bridge, and these are subject to negative vetting procedure. Among these 5 pieces, 4 are commencement notices, and these are 4 commencement notices to designate the commencement date of 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation scrutinized already last year. So the commencement date is the 24th of October, which is the commissioning date of the bridge. Now, Last year, we have scrutinized 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation last year, and their purposes are to designate the closed area and also to give permission to enter for drivers and passengers and to allow the Immigration Department to designate places of detention and designated places for detention purposes. Now, in October last year, the government has introduced these 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation, and in the same month of last year, a subcommittee was formed to scrutinize these subsidiary legislations. The commencement date of these 4 pieces of such subsidiary legislation, as outlined in the brief introduced to the LegCo last year and also at the meeting of the subcommittee last year, was mentioned. These 4 pieces of subsidiary legislation will commence on a date to tie in with the commission of the bridge. So the Secretary for Security will get set the commencement date of these 4 notices. Now, the subcommittee back then didn't object to these subsidiary legislation. So the scrutiny period expired on the 8th of November 2017. And on the 19th of October this year, the Transport and Housing Bureau Director said that the bridge will be commissioned on the 24th of October. As explained before, the Secretary for Security also designated the 24th of October this year to be the commencement date for these subsidiary legislation. And all these were gazetted on the 22nd of October already. So these are commencement dates, notices. The other one is the Cross-Boundary Movement of Physical Currency and Bearer Negotiable Instruments Ordinance, Amendment of Schedule 1, Number 3, Notice 2018. Likewise, we have introduced this piece of subsidiary legislation on the 22nd of October 2018. It was drawn up by the Customs Director of Customs and Excise, and that is to say, if passengers carry a certain amount of CBNIs in Hong Kong, they must make a declaration. And these will also apply to the bridge port. When the government scrutinized this ordinance, we have already explained to the LegCo, and that is also the existing legislation. If passengers arriving are in possession of a large quantity of CBIs, that total value of which is more than $120,000, they must make a written declaration. Now, since the Secretary of Transport and Housing announced that the commissioning date of the bridge was going to be the 24th of October, so we have also make arrangements for the bridge to be included in Schedule 1 to the ordinance. So these 5 pieces of subsidiary legislation are to dovetail with the commissioning of the bridge, and these are technical amendments. 4 of them are commencement notices on commencement date. So much for my presentation. I hope that the members can support these 5 pieces of subsidiary legislation, and we are happy to answer questions by members. All right, I'll open the floor to questions by members, 5 minutes each, including questions and answers. Mr. Lam Chuk Ting, after the bridge was commissioned, we saw that there was a strong response from the community, especially those from Tung Chung. Please do not say that I'm digressing. I'm really going back to this very soon. Now, for this amendment of subsidiary legislation, one of it has to do with the carrying of CBNIs valued more than $120,000. If that is the case, declaration has to be made with the CNED. That amount should not be brought in unless there is a declaration made. Now, let's go by the experience of Shang Shui, because I am a North District councillor, and Mr. Laitler is also was a former Tai Po District Commander of the Hong Kong Police Force in Tai Po. Now, there were heavy parallel goods trading in Northern District, and a lot of cash was brought over from across the border to Hong Kong. In Shanghai, in the past few years, there were robbery cases on the street of people carrying a large amount of cash. And we see that in the district, there are a lot of foreign exchange shops, a lot of parallel goods shops. So there is a great flow of cash and people in the district. Tongcheng has not yet come to that stage, but it can be envisaged that Tongcheng will soon become another district which is like Shanghai. There will be a lot more foreign exchange shops, parallel goods shops, etc. So there will be heavy flow of goods and people in cash. So, Madam Ho from the CNED, do you have any measures to prevent or combat anyone carrying cash of over $120,000 and not making a declaration? Do you have any tactics to deal with that? Because in Shanghai, we do see a lot of robbery cases on the street, and then we came to realize that there are so many people carrying so much cash around. Ms. Ho, thank you. Chairman, Mr. Lam, thank you for your question. According to the new law, any incoming traveler, when they go via a specified control point and they're in possession of a large quantity of CBNIs totaling more than $120,000, they must make use of the red and green channel system and use the red channel to make a declaration proactively. That is a proactive declaration through red channel. But Mr. Lam said that some people would like not to declare and they will go through the green channel. So if there is passenger or traveling deliberately, not making a declaration, we would actually mount special operations at the green channel targeting travelers who might have such a behavior, as I mentioned. So we will intercept these travelers and check whether they have over $120,000 of CBNIs. And if they are found in breach of the rule, we will take a necessary action. Now, apart from these special operations at the port area, this year, for enforcing the new law, we have arranged for 4 sniper dogs who can check out on these travelers. So based on the risk of the different ports, they will be deployed to help frontline operations. On top of all these measures, at the port, we have some checking machines. We have advanced X-ray machines. These advanced machines can help frontline officers check whether travelers who are not making necessary declarations is required. Yes, I would like to pose another question to Madam Ho. At the port area, do you have any clear indications or signs asking the traveler or requiring the traveler to pass through certain channels when they are in possession of a large quantity of CBNIs? Are these notices big and conspicuous enough? And if they carry over $120,000 but not making a declaration, so what are the enforcement actions? Are you going to confiscate the money or taking out prosecutions or what? And at the initial stage of the commissioning of the bridge, I hope that you can deploy as many law enforcers as possible to enforce the law so that we can combat on money laundering or stopping people from smuggling large quantity of money into Hong Kong. So 2 questions and 1 comment. We talk about publicity work. This law commenced operation on the 16th of July, but prior to that, we have already conducted extensive publicity and public education.
For example, we've conducted some publicity at the port area. When the travelers arrive at the control point, they can clear the the requirement that anyone carrying more than $120,000 would need to make a declaration. And for the convenience of travelers and members of the public, and to enable them to know about this rule, we have, before the commencement, we've already conducted a lot of publicity through different media channels. With that, we believe that the public should be quite familiar with the requirements under this rule. As for enforcement, after the commencement of the regulation, we have a 3-month grace period. During those 3-month grace period, anyone who failed to make a declaration for the first time, for such travelers, we will issue a warning letter to them. And when we issue the warning letter, we would clearly explain to them the requirements of the regulation and what they need to do to comply. And after the expiry of the grace period, should there still be such failure to make declarations, we will take proper enforcement action, meaning that if we discover somebody carrying currency or cash which is not related to money laundering or terrorist financing, and it's the first time that they are failing to make a declaration, then we can allow them to pay a fine of $2,000 so that he or she could be absolved of the legal liability. But if it's not a first-time offender, if it is a second time, then we will refer such cases to the court for prosecution, and it will be for the court to make a judgment. The maximum penalty would be a fine of $500,000 and 2 years imprisonment. For the Immigration Department and the Xin-Yi Department, I think you should step up the exchange of information with your mainland counterparts so that you can identify people who are involved in parallel goods trader or smuggling cash. You should step up the collection of evidence so that you can tackle such illegal activities. I'd like to follow up on one point. Madam, you refer to the 3-month grace period. During that period, had there been any cases of non-compliance of the rule? During the 3-month grace period, we have found that some travelers might not be so familiar with the requirements of the new rule, or they might have been negligent, and therefore during those 3 months we have issued 20 warning letters. As I said, when we issue the warning letter, we will reiterate the requirements of the rule. Mr. Wing, thank you. Regarding the detention facilities of the Immigration Department, I'd like to know, under normal circumstances, what are the rules governing the use of such detention facilities? Is it based on the volume of human traffic that you determine the size of the detention facility? If the detention room were saturated, and do you have any fallback plan to cater to the need to detain people? You said that you issued 20 warning letters during the grace period. Other than the warning letter, did these people have to show any responsibility? Did they have to, would it be that if they should commit the same offense again, they would have to face a heavier penalty? So 3 questions. Thank you, Mr. Yik, for Mr. Yiu. I said that during the grace period, we issue a total of 20 warning letters to those people who have failed to make declarations. During that, after the expiry of the 3-month grace period, any traveler coming to Hong Kong and are in possession of more than $120,000, they can choose to make a declaration by going through the Red Channel. If it is for the first time that they are committing the offense, we will impose a fine of $2,000, and after that they could be absolved of the legal liabilities. So do they have to absolve further liabilities. Let's say if they should commit the offence again, they would be subject to a heavier penalty. Well, during the 3-month grace period, we've considered that the declaration system had never been enforced in Hong Kong before. We want to allow the trade and the public more time to get used to the new system. So after these people have been issued a warning letter, they would not have to show any legal liability. But of course, if they commit an offence for the first time, they will be fined $2,000, and for the second time, the case will be taken to the court. Will they be taken to the detention room in the police station? I think at the Shenzhen Bay, port area, we have 10 detention rooms. In most cases, if the inbound traveler is being refused entry into Hong Kong, we will immediately repatriate them to the mainland or Macau. But in some cases, we may need to conduct investigation and the person will need to be detained overnight. Then only then will we need to use the detention room. So for the time being, the 10 detention rooms are sufficient, and these rooms are of basic, safe design. If there should be, we're running short of detention rooms, we can also make use of detention rooms in other port areas. But based on the current situation, the number of detention rooms is certainly sufficient. We have 10 detention rooms at the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge port area. There are 10. Any further follow-up? No. So I don't think we have any other questions. Mr. Lam Chek Ting. Second round, 4 minutes. Chairman. I'd like to ask the Madam again regarding the $120,000 ceiling. If the traveller makes a declaration, how would you deal with that? Would you consider the purpose, the reason why he's carrying that much, and would you take into consideration the amount that he is carrying into Hong Kong before you decide whether or not you allow him to bring in the cash? Well, this declaration system or requirement is not a requirement in respect of exchange control. If a traveller were to bring in more than $120,000, no matter what the amount be, they will be allowed to bring them in so long as they make a declaration. Mr. Lam asked about, I think the important point is that if the traveller brings in more than $120,000 and they make a declaration through the red channel, then he would have satisfied the requirements under the ordinance. Well, in that case, I may be talking about an extreme scenario. Let's say you have a terrorist who is bringing in cash to sponsor certain terrorist acts. He tells you that he's bringing in a $1 million RMB. Does that mean that he will be allowed to come into Hong Kong? Of course, he will not tell you that he's a terrorist. Why don't you let Madam Ho to answer the question first? And now, let's say he brings in $1 million and he makes a declaration. Then under what circumstances would you have suspicion and follow up on such a case? Thank you. I think Madam Mong can further supplement. I believe that the declaration under this ordinance is that there could be a record so that if anything should happen afterwards, we can conduct follow-up investigation based on the record. But the commencement of this regulation will not affect all the relevant investigation, in respect of money laundering and terrorist finance. So after someone has made a declaration, does it mean that illegitimate cash could be brought into Hong Kong? That's not the case. With the declaration system, we can actually, follow up so that if there is intelligence, telling us that that person might be involved in certain criminal activities, then we would already have other ordinances that will enable us to conduct investigation. The Security Bureau said that they would like the Madam Ho to further supplement. Thank you, Mr. Lam. Well, the person has already made a declaration, but the Customs Excise Department has its own intelligence network. When he makes a declaration, and if we know that this traveler is bringing in cash, which could be involved in money laundering or terrorist financing, then we can, based on other relevant legislation, we may not need to invoke this particular ordinance. We can take enforcement action pursuant to other ordinances. Right. If there are no further questions, may I ask our legal advisor whether you have any comments regarding these notices? If not, then I believe we can now go to the clause by clause. Chairman, I'm responsible for 4 of these notices. So we will deal with 198, notice 119. It's very simple. So this is to designate a closed area in the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge port area and to commence on the 24th of October. We now go on to Legal Notice 199. Again, likewise, this notice stipulates that the closed area, this is in respect of the closed area of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macao Bridge Hong Kong port area and the Hong Kong Ling Road closed area coming into effect from the 24th of October. All right. Legal Notice 201. This is to stipulate the Immigration Places of Detention Amendment Order 2017, which will come into effect on the 24th of October 2018, the same date which is the commencement of the bridge. Next, Immigration Service Designated Places Amendment Ordinance 2017, which will commence on the 24th of October 2018. Next, Legal Notice 202. I think I would defer this to the Customs Excise Department. Thank you. Legal Notice. This is the amendment, the cross-border movement of physical currency and bearer negotiable instruments ordinance. Amendment notice number 2 and number 3. In Schedule 1, we will add the Hong Kong-Macao Bridge as a designated port area. So anyone bringing in more than $120,000 into Hong Kong will need to make a written declaration to the Customs Excise Department by going through the Red Channel. I'd like to declare that I think we sort of mixed up the order earlier. The Security Bureau was referring to Legal Notice 198, and Madam was referring to 199, so we sort of mixed up the order. So if there are no further questions, I think we've finished with the scrutiny of these notices. The clerk has explained that under normal circumstances, we need to serve a 5-day notice, but since we don't have a House committee in between, so we need to apply for an extension So on the 21st of November, we will be moving a motion to extend the period for amending the 5 items of the subsidiary legislation to December the 12th.
咁咧就
So according to these latest dates, the deadline for giving notice of amendment to the subsidiary legislation is the 5th of December 2018. Members, any further questions? If not, that's it for today. I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.